Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 1, Chapter 1 of Deadhouse Gates, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it's most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Know that Kamraun and I know that this series is the best fantasy story ever written, period. And we are approaching this from a purely fanboy point of view, and that we will provide no literary critique, at least not about this series. Just pure love, baby, especially for this episode.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Now, quick warning, today's episode may contain copious amounts of blood, death, destruction, and loads of graphic violence. Maybe not. And it's therefore probably not recommended for children.
Would you say the violence is explosive today?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Quite.
Our show is listener supported. If you would like to support us, we would really appreciate it. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we are posting ad-free episodes on Patreon.
Also, we would really like to hear from you, so please send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com.
We have one addition prior to going into the episode today. Both you and I have mentioned how we envision Darujistan with an Arabian Nights type of theme.
Yeah.
We got an email from a listener that says, quote, "When I picture Darujistan, I see Verona, Italy from Romeo and Juliet, because one of the first scenes in the city involves a balcony and two star-crossed lovers, which could be Chalice and Crocus."
Right on.
End quote.
Right on.
I could totally see that. And
Yeah.
for me, I guess the blue lights from the gas lamps in combination with the rooftop chases being similar to Prince of Persia are really what made me gravitate to the Arabian Nights type of visual.
You know, I can see this. I totally agree with you. I can see this, but I'm never going to get away from the Arabian Nights, Prince of Persia vibe, because that's just me. That's how I imagine this place. But I can totally see it being like that. Would that be the same kind of? Is that the same era as Assassin's Creed 2?
That's
Right
exactly
around-
what I was going to say next. It's like Ezio, Assassin's
Yeah.
Creed 2.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm down with that
Assassin's Creed
too.
Brotherhood. Yeah. I could totally see that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
In my mind, I always envisioned it as more of a being in, I guess Italy's in an arid climate the southern part, being on the Mediterranean, which I guess Italy's on the Mediterranean too.
It is,
but
yeah.
Closer to Spain, that area with the Moors and, that whole era of time. I don't know. I'm talking out of I'm just going to stop.
It's okay. No, I agree. I know exactly what you're getting at. And I agree. I can see where they're getting at with that. It could go either way, but I'm not going to change because in video games, who came first, Prince of Persia or Assassin's Creed?
That's a good point.
No offense, I love both games, but we all know that Prince of Persia is the precursor to Assassin's Creed.
And for me, the quintessential Assassin's Creed is the first one because it left such an impression on me.
Yes. Well, actually, for me, it was 2.
And that has the architecture that I'm talking about.
Okay.
So maybe that's also part of it.
Is that Turkish vibe? That's the third one. That's the Brotherhood, wasn't it? Where you got that great Turkey, Constantinople stuff going on. Ottoman Empire. That's kind of got the same vibe as Prince of Persia, though. Ottoman Empire does to me, so that never mind. Okay.
Both perfectly viable.
Yes. However you choose to see it, folks, please see it the way you want to.
Yes. All right. Chapter 1, Part 2. We begin this section of the chapter with Fiddler, Kalam, Crocus, Apsalar, and Moby.
I'll tell you what's funny for me when we were talking last episode, and I always, for some reason, in my brain, whenever I review this book, this is where the book starts for me for some reason.
Okay, as opposed to the culling in the prologue.
Yeah, the culling's just so brutal. But yeah, what we talked about last week also. But I mean, in the first part of the chapter is still. I don't know why I always think of them. I always think the book opens with them crossing here.
Mm-hmm. So Fiddler, Kalam, Crocus, Apsalar, and Moby are on a boat where they have left the Skara Isles behind, and they headed due south in this fisher boat. If the wind held, they would reach the Erlitan coast in 4 hours. And geographically, they are north of the Seven Cities continent and heading south across the Kanzu Sea. Erlitan lies southeast of their current location. Fiddler's scowl deepened as he thought of Seven Cities and how much he hated the continent. He hated it the first time, and he hated it even more now. He leaned over the gunwale and spat bile into the warm green water. Now, remember last time we saw him, he was hemming and hawing in the boat on Lake Azure after they left Darujistan. He cannot handle being on the water at all.
He's a total landlubber.
Yes. Crocus was up at the prow and asked, "Feeling any better?" Fiddler wanted to punch him in the face. Instead, he just growled and hunched down deeper against the bark's hull. Kalam manned the tiller at the stern, and his laugh rumbled. He said, "Fiddler and water don't mix, lad. Look at him. He's greener than that damned winged monkey of yours." Fiddler heard a sympathetic snuffling sound near his cheek. He pried open one bloodshot eye and found Moby staring at him. He croaked, "Go away, Moby." The familiar, which had once belonged to Crocus's Uncle Mammoth, seemed to have adopted Fiddler. Kalam would say it was the other way round, of course. Fiddler whispered, "A lie. Kalam's good at those." Like lounging around in Rutu Jelba for a whole damn week on the off chance that a scray trader would come in. Book passage in comfort, eh, Fid? Not like the damned ocean crossing, oh no. And that one was supposed to have been in comfort, too. A whole week in Rutu Jelba, a lizard-infested, orange-bricked cesspool of a city. Then what? 8 jacatas for this rag-stoppered, sawed-in-half ale casket.
Tell us what you really think, Fiddler.
Yeah, he's pissed.
Yeah, he is.
Rutu Jelba is a city that lies north of their location across the Odotaral Sea. It's on the northern edge of the Odotaral Desert, and it's on the west coast of that island.
Okay.
And again, I highly recommend everybody look at the map at the front of the book or look online for some maps of 7 cities. It'll really help you get oriented. As I've said before, I had the map mirrored in my head somehow.
Well, I'll tell you, I've really enjoyed what you've brought with the map. It's actually brought things into my mind a lot more vividly. Thank you.
I appreciate you listening.
Hey, it's my pleasure, brother.
As the journey continued, Fiddler's mind drifted back to the long journey that had brought them thus far, and then to the appallingly long journey that lay ahead. He thought that he'd rather that every sea dried up. Men got feet, not flippers. Even so, we're about to cross overland, over a fly-infested, waterless waste where people smile only to announce they're about to kill you. As the day went on, Fiddler thought back to the companions he'd left behind on Genebacus, wishing he could be marching alongside them, into a religious war. He thought to himself, "Don't forget that, Fid. Religious wars are no fun. The faculty of reasoning that permitted surrender did not apply in such instances." The squad was all he'd known for years, and now he just had Kalam for old company, and he called that land ahead home, and he smiled before he killed. Fiddler wondered what Kalam and Quickbend had planned that they hadn't told him about yet. Apsalar put her hand on Fiddler's shoulder and said, "There's more of those flying fish, hundreds of them." Kalam said, "Something big from the deep is chasing them." Fiddler groaned and sat up. Moby took the opportunity and crawled into his lap. Moby acts very cat-like. Remember when he was sassing Mammoth and plopped down on his desk and spilled all his papers on the floor?
Yeah, total cat move there too.
Yes.
But yeah, he is very, very much like that. The only problem with the problem I have with Moby, he's got thumbs.
Fiddler gripped the gunwale and joined the others in studying the school of flying fish 100 yards off the starboard side. The fish were the length of a man's arm and milky white. They jumped out of the water and sailed 30 feet or so before they slipped back into the water. The flying fish hunted like sharks. The school's capable of shredding a bull whale down to the bones in minutes. They used their ability to fly to launch themselves onto the back of a whale when it broke for air. I don't love that.
These sound like what's bad is it sounds like flying fish meets piranha. And I agree, I don't love that.
Yeah.
These are big. That's 16 inches minimum.
As long as a man's arm, my arm's at least 2.5 feet long.
Yeah. Hey, the Bible calls that a cubit, brother.
Okay.
That's a cubit. That's a lot of a cubit.
Okay.
It's that's some big fellas. And those are, oh my word, eating the bull whale down to bones in minutes. That's rough.
Yeah, and I imagine if they can fly up and land on stuff, it's not just whales that they take bites out of.
Oh yeah, I imagine people are walking around with scars from them things in that
Mm-hmm.
world. It's like, do you know what an alligator gar is?
Oh, absolutely. Some
It's like
guy
a
just caught a 300-pound alligator gar in one of the bayous in Houston a couple weeks
ugh,
ago. He let it go.
yeah. Those are nasty things. It's kind of like that. It's like a flying alligator gar.
They look nasty, but they're generally
Yeah,
pretty
gar.
benign, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. You just don't go sticking things near their mouth. Yeah, and they're pretty chill, but they actually do. They're an aggressive fish, though.
Are they aggressive?
They're aggressive in a way that they. I don't think they're aggressors,
Mm-hmm.
but if they're threatened, they're very aggressive.
Okay.
And I can't vouch a whole lot for that. There was I grew up. I had a lake house. I'm sorry, my parents had a lake house. I grew up there a lot during the summer, and there was one that lived under a neighbor's dock. And that dude would get all agitated. He lays on top of the water, look like a stick, and then they just flop around real angry. I'm not sure.
Mm.
I'm not sure what they're flopping around about, but they start flopping over something, and it's like, wow, that dude looks pretty angry about something.
How big was it?
They could be. They're also about 16. They could be small, like about 16 inches, and that was a small one though. But they could be long. Some of them could be longer. I'm sure there's some big boys down in there.
Oh yeah, the alligator gar, they can live pretty long time.
Yeah, them and
They get 6-7 feet long.
yeah, them and catfish. They're like they get big fellas. They age. They live long, and yeah, they do live long and prosper.
Yeah. Fiddler asked, "What in Male's name is hunting them?" Male is the god of the seas. Kalam frowned and said, "Shouldn't be anything here in the Kanzu. Out in Seeker's Deep, there's Denrabi, of course." Fiddler exclaimed, "Denrabi! Oh, that comforts me, Kalam. Oh, yes, indeed." Crocus asked, "Some kind of sea serpent?" Fiddler said, "Think of a centipede 80 paces long, wraps up whales and ships alike, blows out all the air under its armored skin and sinks like a stone, taking its prey with it. I love that even less than the cubit-long flying fish.
Oh,
It's a biological submarine kraken."
it is. It's awful. I think part of my problem with this, part of my problem with the sea just exists with the problem with the sea in general. It's just so dadgum big, and there's so much that we don't know about it. I just don't want to be on it. I don't mind being out in it a little bit, swim in the waters on the edges. Take a boat out in it a little bit, but I don't want to be crossing one, especially with giant aquatic centipedes.
Generally, it's not bad. I guess what freaks me out is when you see those storms that they have in places like the Indian Ocean, where the waves are, you got
Yes.
like 60-foot seas, and the whole vessel, like all you see is water when it's going
Yeah.
down, and then all you see is sky when it's going the other way.
Were you in that stuff? You've been there, right?
No. So
Oh.
the worst I've been on was probably about 15-foot seas, but I've been on 15-foot seas in two different occasions. One was on a 300-foot vessel, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, the boat was moving around enough to where if I was walking down one of the hallways, I'd be taking a step and the floor wouldn't be there. You'd have to kind of just hold on to the guardrail until it went to the other side, and then you take a couple steps, then you stop.
Right.
The worst time, I was on a barge that was it was maybe half that length, 150 feet or
Okay.
so. And barges are anchored.
Oh my.
So it would be anchored, and they try and anchor it so that you're facing into the waves. So they're coming right at you and they're hitting the bow. But what would happen is the current would shift, and then it would be going diagonal. And then one side's going up, and all you're seeing is the sky. And then it goes down to the other corner. And now all you're looking at is the water. I got up on the helideck and I was trying to take a video of it. And the sad thing about when you go out and take videos of stuff, it doesn't really capture the full field of view. It really does not convey what's happening very well, because even though the camera looks like it's going up and down, it's just not the same effect.
Yeah.
And there's something quite troubling about that whole rocking motion where all you see is water, then all you see is sky.
Oh, that's all. I can't imagine it, dude. That sounds real. I see it enough on Deadliest Catch. I get my thrill there vicariously.
All right. Kalam said, "They're rare and never seen in shallow water." Crocus's voice rose in alarm. He exclaimed, "Until now!" The Denrabi broke the surface in the midst of the flying fish, thrashing its head side to side. Its wide razor-like mouth flensed prey by the score. The width of the creature's head was as many as 10 arm spans. Its segmented armor was deep green under the encrusted barnacles, each segment revealing long chitinous limbs. The width of its head is 60 feet.
Wow. Golly, that's a big fella. That's
Yeah.
enormous. The width.
That's the head. The width of the head. Yeah. That's
Wow.
pretty crazy.
That's scary.
Fiddler hissed, 80 paces long? Not unless it's been cut in half. Kalam rose at the tiller and said, ready with the sail, Crocus. We're going to run, westerly. Fiddler pushed Moby from his lap and opened his backpack. He fumbled as he attempted to unwrap his crossbow and said, if it decides we look tasty, Kalam. Kalam rumbled, I know. Fiddler quickly assembled the huge iron weapon, then glanced up and met Apsalar's wide eyes. Her face was white. Fiddler winked and said, got a surprise if it comes for us, girl. She nodded, then said, I remember. The Denrabi had seen them. It veered from the school of flying fish and now cut sinuously through the waves toward them. Kalam muttered, that's no ordinary beast. You smelling what I'm smelling, Fiddler? Fiddler smelled something spicy and bitter. He said, Hood's breath. That's a soul taken. Crocus asked, a what? Kalam clarified, shapeshifter. And as a reminder, a soul taken is someone that can shapeshift into a single entity. Fiddler heard a rasping voice in his mind, and the expressions on his companions' faces told him that they heard as well. The voice said, mortals, unfortunate for you to witness my passage. Fiddler grunted and thought the creature did not sound regretful at all. It continued, for this you must all die, though. I shall not dishonor your flesh by eating you. Fiddler muttered, kind of you, and set a solid quarrel in the crossbow's slot. The iron head had been replaced with a grapefruit-sized clay ball. Yes.
Yes. The boys and their toys.
The soul taken ironically said, another fisher boat mysteriously lost. Fiddler scrambled to the stern and crouched down beside Kalam, who straightened to face the Denrabi, one hand on the tiller. Kalam yelled, soul taken, be on your way. We care nothing for your passage. The soul taken said, I shall be merciful when killing you. The creature rushed them from directly astern, cutting through the water like a sharp-hulled ship. Its jaws opened wide. Fiddler said, you were warned, as he raised the crossbow, aimed, and fired. The quarrel sped for the soul taken's open mouth. The Denrabi snapped at the shaft. Its thin, saw-edged teeth sliced through the quarrel and shattered the clay ball. This exposed the powdery mixture within the ball to the air. The contact resulted in an instantaneous explosion that blew the soul taken's head apart. Straight out of Jaws. I love it. And those sappers know how to get that work done, don't they?
Oh, they do. And I always, because I don't know about you, but I think the reason why I think this is the opening of the book for me is because I love this interaction. This fella comes along and he just thinks he is a bad dude, and he's a big fella. Mm-hmm. He's every bit as big as a dragon. If he's got a head 60 foot wide.
Bigger than a dragon, I would think.
Yeah. So and he comes on. It's just one shot, dude. It was like, it's like Fid didn't even have to roll a 5 for that shot. It was like, okay, look, guy, we're giving you a shot here. We're warning you.
Yeah, to be fair, its mouth was open wide.
Yeah. They gave it warning. I just like how he thought he was all that in a bag of chips, and they just wiped him out, dude. It's like those videos on Facebook where you see people picking fights with the wrong guy.
Yes.
Like
the bully pushes the small kid a little too far. The small kid picks him up, slams him on the ground.
I'm talking about more like I saw something the other day because I'm new to Facebook, mind you, but this old man and his wife are being bullied by these thugs in Ireland. This guy takes his shirt off and beats about 6 of them to the ground. Then he's so wound up, he starts taking out after the crowd.
Oh man.
He goes berserker mode. He's like 67 or something like that. It's like, dude, he berserkered that gang.
That guy probably used to be some type of fighter or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But
probably a champion boxer.
Yeah. Bare knuckle boxer. It's Brad Pitt. It's Brad Pitt from Snatch.
You never know, man.
Yeah, I know it. That's the scary thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you got to love how the Moranth munitions are great equalizers.
Dude, big time equalizers. I mean, that's a huge fella. And they were just like, look, we're going to warn you. We warned you once. We know what we're doing. You obviously don't know who we are. It's like, we'll give you a chance.
Yeah. And then the sappers, their ability to use those effectively. It's amazing.
Yes. It's an art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an art.
Those that survive.
Right.
Fragments of skull and gray flesh raked the water on all sides. The incendiary powder continued to burn fiercely all that it clung to, which sent up hissing steam. Momentum carried the headless body to within 4 spans of the vessel's stern before it sunk down and slid smoothly out of sight, even as the last echoes of the detonation faded. Smoke drifted sideways over the waves. Fiddler said, "You picked the wrong fisherman," and lowered his crossbow.
Yes, you did.
That's a good one-liner.
Yeah.
Kalam settled back at the tiller and returned the vessel to a southerly course. Fiddler disassembled his crossbow and repacked it in oilcloth. As he returned to his old seat, Moby crawled back into his lap. Fiddler sighed and scratched him behind an ear. He said, "Well, Kalam?" Kalam said, "I'm not sure. What brought a soul taken into the Kansu Sea? Why did it want its passage secret?" Fiddler said, "If Quick Ben was here," Kalam interrupted, "But he isn't, Fid. It's a mystery we'll have to live with, and hopefully we won't run into any more." Fiddler asked, "Do you think it's related to?" Kalam scowled. He said no. Crocus demanded, "Related to what? What are you two going on about?" Fiddler said, "Just musing. The soul taken was heading south, like us." Crocus said, "So?" Fiddler shrugged and said, "So, nothing. Just that." He spat over the side again and slumped down. He said, "The excitement made me forget my seasickness. Now the excitement's faded. Damn it." Everyone fell silent, though the frown on Crocus's face told Fiddler that the boy wasn't about to let the issue rest for long. The steady wind pushed them hard southward. Less than 3 hours later, Apsalar announced that she could see land ahead. 40 minutes later, Kalam navigated them on a parallel course to the Erlitan coastline, half a league offshore. They tacked west, following the cedar-lined ridge as the sunlight waned. Apsalar said, "I think I see horsemen." Fiddler raised his head and joined the others in studying the riders as they followed a coastal track along the ridge. Kalam said, "I make them 6 in all. Second riders." Fiddler finished the statement, "Got an imperial pennon, messenger and lancer guard." Kalam added, "Heading for Erlitan." Fiddler turned and met Kalam's dark eyes. Fiddler's gaze communicated, "Trouble?" Kalam's gaze said, "Maybe," in response. The exchange was silent, a product of years fighting side by side. Do you think that we developed this silent communication technique in the returns counter at Fry's Electronics?
Yes. Yes. You notice that there was no hesitation either, and it was like no hesitation whatsoever. It's like yes.
Went through the trenches together, did we?
Through the trenches. That's a brotherhood moment. Yes. Hey, you had my back when I talk smack. So I mean, it's like it's all I know.
You never talk smack, unless somebody really.
The one time I did, it's like you had my back, bro. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, good
right.
gracious.
Crocus asked, "Something wrong, Kalam, Fiddler?" Fiddler thought, "The boy's sharp," then muttered, "Hard to say. They've seen us, but what have they seen? 4 fisher folk in a bark. Some Scray family headed into the port for a taste of civilization." The mention of a Scray family makes me think this is someone from Skara Brae, and it's an island that they would have passed on the way from Rudu Jelba to Kansu. So you have the Ototaro Island in the northeast, and then there's this island, Skara Brae, and then they would have passed that on the way to the mainland.
Okay.
I love how this world is a living world.
It is. It's a magnificent world. I think if I had a chance to see any fantasy realm, it's this one.
I think it would look largely like our world.
Yeah, it would. It would be very similar to ours, except I think it's bigger.
Oh, it's absolutely bigger. But the locales, it's like the geography was drawn, then the people that would live in those geographies.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it would largely look like our world, with the exception of the inclusion of demons. Dragons.
Demons, dragons, except for the other people. Just call them the other peoples. Because they are basically just the other inhabitants of the multiverse. Is it the best way of looking at it?
Because I don't know that it's different realities, It's more, what is the thing that Ant-Man goes into?
The quantum,
The quantum realm.
quantum realm.
I
Yeah.
almost feel like it's closer to the quantum realm than a multiverse, because it's not like alternate realities.
Yeah, I agree.
They're all components of the same reality.
They're all part of the same reality, but are the Warrens different realities though, or aspects of reality? Is that a weird question? I don't even know if
I'm processing the question.
Okay. Because they are their own, they're worlds, but that doesn't necessarily mean another reality though, just another world.
No.
So I'm like you. I think it's more like the quantum, more akin to the quantum realm, where these other.
I think it's more like
these
that.
Warrens would be. They're other worlds. They're not necessarily. They're not different realities, but they're different worlds where different laws apply, I guess. Which has been true of the quantum realm, I guess. So.
Because some of them are overlapping on the main plane, right?
Yes, yeah, because I assume that the planet, the place where everything takes place is basically our safe space. This is our 000. This is this is our world where that's our home base.
You would say that.
Yeah, but I have no option but to say that. I'm a human. I'm a human. I'm for the humans in this group. So I'm pro-human.
Yeah. I was thinking about the name stuff the other day, and as we're getting into this book, there's so many new names.
Yes.
Between the locations and everything. I don't know how he comes up with so many good names.
I know
it is really hard. When I've run D&D campaigns,
he lifts some. I know where he lifts some. I promise you, some of that comes from. I'm assuming it from archaeology and from the Middle East, because some names pop out, and I pick up some biblical stuff like locations or the people's name Baruch. Baruch was actually the prophet Jeremiah had a fellow that worked for him named Baruch. That was his scribe.
Oh, okay. So maybe older, less common names that would have been common in that type of area or something like that.
This also feeds into my belief of that Middle Eastern vibe to this certain area in particular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's why I tend to lean so hard on that, because these names especially remind me of things out of the Bible. So I think Middle East, Jerusalem. That's because that to me is the Holy Land, brother.
Mm-hmm. Kalam said, "There's a village just south of the tree line. Keep an eye out for a creek mouth, Crocus, and a beach with no driftwood. The houses will be tucked leeward of the ridge, meaning inland. How's my memory, Fid?" Fiddler said, "Good enough for a native, which is what you are. How long out of the city?" Kalam said, 10 hours on foot. Fiddler asked, "That close?" Kalam said, "That close." Fiddler fell silent. The Imperial messenger and his horse guard had moved out of sight as they left the ridge and swung south toward Erlatan. Their plan had been to sail right into the holy city's ancient crowded harbor, arriving anonymously. Fiddler thought it was likely that the messenger was delivering information that had nothing to do with them, since they'd given nothing away since reaching the imperial port of Kara Karang from Genabakis, arriving on a Maranth Blue trader having paid passage as a crew. The overland journey from Kara Karang across the Talgai Mountains and down to Rutu Jelba had been on the Tano Pilgrim route, which was a common enough journey. And the week in Rutu Jelba had been spent inconspicuously lying low, with only Kalam making nightly excursions to the Wharf District, where he looked for passage across the Odotaral Sea to the mainland. Now, geographically, Kara Karang lies on the north coast of Odotaral Island. So Odotaral Island itself is northeast of Seven Cities. And then on the north coast of that, that's where Kara Karang lies. And this appears to be the main large city on the coast that's closer to Genabakis, because Genabakis is further east again from the Odotaral Island. Okay.
And it's like it's several thousand miles, correct, to the east?
Yeah, it's pretty far. It's at least 1,500 leagues, something like that. Now, in this paragraph here, they mentioned that they had booked passage on a Maranth Blue trader. We never really learned about the Maranth Blue in Gardens of the Moon.
Yeah.
We did learn about the Black. The Black were the soldiers, the main soldiers, and then you had
Yeah.
the gold, which were the elites. Then you had the green, which were the ones that were flying, doing
Let's
a lot
call
of
them Air
logistics
Force.
stuff.
Call them the Air Force. They're the Air Force, and these fellows are the
Okay.
Navy.
Well, do you think they have a space force?
They could have a space force. If it was Moranth done, you better believe it was a deadly group of folks.
Yeah. And then the blue are their Navy. Yeah. I just wanted to point that out because this might be one of the first mentions that we have confirming that they are the seafaring Moranth.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
What?
I just had a Monty Python and the Flying Circus, not the Holy Grail, but the Flying Circus was the TV show for Monty Python, and they would have these Terry Gilliam, those great animations about join the new Navy, because there's less cannibalism in the new Navy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're trying to sell this as a point as they're getting ready to film an ad. It's fantastic. It's 1968 or so it's Monty Python. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was thinking about the Moranth Navy, it's like with fewer acts of cannibalism. So I'm sorry. That's all. So when I think of the Navy, especially, I can only think of with fewer acts of cannibalism.
Nice. Fiddler's thought continued. At worst, a report might have reached someone official somewhere that 2 possible deserters, accompanied by a Genebacan and a woman, had arrived on Malazan territory. Hardly news to shake the imperial wasp nest all the way to Erlatan. Fiddler concluded likely Kalam was being his usual paranoid self. Crocus said, "I see the stream mouth," and pointed to a place on the shore. Fiddler glanced back at Kalam. His look conveyed a question. Hostile land, how low do we crawl? Kalam's look back communicated, looking up at grasshoppers, Fid. Fiddler thought Hood's breath, and he looked back to the shore and whispered, I hate 7 cities. Moby yawned as he sat in Fiddler's lap, which revealed a mouth bristling with needle-like fangs. Fiddler blanched. He said, cuddle up whenever you want, pup, and shivered. Apsalar shifted on her seat and stretched her arms, then flashed Fiddler a smile. He scowled and looked away. He thought, burn, shake me. I've got to keep my jaw from dropping every time she does that. She was another woman once, a killer, the knife of a god. She did things. Besides, she's with Crocus, ain't she? The boy's got all the luck, and the whores in Karakarang look like poxed sisters from some gigantic poxed family, and all those poxed babies on their hips. He shook himself. Oh, Fiddler, too long at sea, way too long.
Oh, rough.
He is just so salty right now.
Oh,
he's mad at life.
Yeah. I guess if you were sick at your stomach for the entire crossing for several hours or days or however long you're on sea, I guess it would be pretty daggum miserable. I guess I'd be pretty salty too.
Mm-hmm. Crocus said, I don't see any boats. Fiddler mumbled, up the creek. He picked a knit from his beard, then thought, 10 hours on foot, then Erlatan, and a bath and a shave, and a Kansuan girl with a saw comb, and the whole night free afterward. Crocus nudged him and asked, getting excited, Fiddler? Fiddler said, you don't know the half of it. Crocus asked, you were here during the conquest, weren't you? Back when Kalam was fighting for the other side, for the 7 holy Faladin and the Talan Imas marched for the Emperor, and Fiddler waved his hand and said, enough! I don't need reminding, and neither does Kalam. All wars are ugly, but that one was uglier than most. Crocus asked, is it true that you were in the company that chased Quick Ben across the holy desert Raraku, and that Kalam was your guide, only he and Quick were planning on betraying you all, but Whiskey Jack had already worked that out? Fiddler turned a glare on Kalam. He said, one night in Rutu Jelba with a jug of Falari rum, and this boy knows more than any imperial historian still breathing. I love his reaction. And Crocus, man, It's like my 7-year-old. Just nonstop.
Well, he's kind of, well, first off, good job, Crocus, showing a lot of initiative, getting that info. But a lot of that's also just he's hanging on every word because he saw these fellas in action back in Darijistan. So I think there's a little hero worship mixed in there. And so when he hears some of these stories, he's like, oh, man, dude, you guys are awesome. You guys are cool.
Yeah.
They are cool.
It probably sounds like they've had exciting lives to him.
It is exciting. If you want, but exciting is also equivalent to extremely dangerous with these fellows. Not mildly dangerous. It's extremely dangerous.
Yeah. life-threateningly
Always,
dangerous.
always. Well, I mean, these guys play with it's bad enough. It's like, imagine the sapper in this is almost like, have you ever seen the old Bugs Bunny cartoon with the gremlin?
No.
Okay, there's the gremlin. It's a World War II propaganda, one of those beautiful World War II ones that I love. And the gremlin is whacking the bomb with a hammer. You know, he's just whacking, whacking, whacking. So it's like, I imagine that's kind of these dudes' jobs with while testing the munitions out. It's like, let's take a little bit more, a little bit more. It's like, it's a dangerous and it requires that kind of mindset. But it's very dangerous and very weird. And these, so they're also adrenaline junkies. I think we've talked about that. And so there's just so much going on here with this. So much going on here.
Right. And then Kalam.
Oh my word, yes.
That's a whole other scenario there with his capabilities.
And they're in the hints at Ben.
Right.
So much to drop there.
Yeah. And on a side note, what a wealth of information that we got there. Until now, we didn't know any of that info about Quick Ben and Kalam. We only knew that they were from 7 cities.
Yes. I love all that stuff too. Anything we can hear about them, I'm always about it.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, we didn't know anything about Whiskey Jack chasing Quick Ben across the holy desert Raraku, or Kalam acting in conjunction with Quick Ben during the pursuit.
Right. And that Whiskey Jack had sussed it out that it was a trap.
Right. Fiddler swung back to Crocus and said, "Listen, son, best you forget everything that drunken lout told you that night. The past is already hunting our tails. No point in making it any easier." Crocus ran a hand through his long black hair. He softly said, "Well, if 7 cities is so dangerous, why didn't we just head straight down to Quantali, to where Apsalar lives, so we could find her father? Why all this sneaking around, and on the wrong continent at that?" Kalam growled, "It's not that simple." Crocus said, "Why? I thought that was the reason for this whole journey." He reached for Apsalar's hand and clasped it in both of his, but gave Kalam and Fiddler a hard look. He said, "You both said you owed it to her. It wasn't right, and you wanted to put it right. But now I'm thinking it's only part of the reason. I'm thinking that you two have something else planned, that taking Apsalar back home was just an excuse to come back to your empire, even though you're officially outlawed. And whatever it is you're planning, it's meant coming here to 7 cities. And it's also meant we have to sneak around, terrified of everything, jumping at shadows, as if the whole Malazan army was after us." Crocus paused, drew a deep breath, then continued. "We have a right to know the truth, because you're putting us in danger, and we don't even know what kind or why, or anything. So out with it, now." The boy is growing up pretty quick.
Yes. Yes, he runs with a dangerous crowd. He better grow up quick.
Yeah. Fiddler leaned back on the gunwale. He looked over at Kalam and raised an eyebrow. He said, "Well, Corporal, it's your call." Kalam said, "Give me a list, Fiddler." Fiddler met Crocus's gaze. He said, "The Empress wants Darujistan. Agreed?" Crocus hesitated, then nodded. Fiddler continued, "What she wants, she usually gets sooner or later. Call it precedent. Now, she's tried to take your city once, right, Crocus? And it cost her Adjunct Lorne, 2 Imperial demons, and High-Fist Dujek's loyalty, not to mention the loss of the bridge burners. Enough to make anyone sting." Crocus said, "Fine, but what's that got to do?" Fiddler said, "Don't interrupt." Corporal said, "Make a list." I'm making it. You followed me so far? Good. Darujistan eluded her once, but she'll make certain next time, assuming there is a next time. Crocus scowled. He said, "Well, why wouldn't there be? You said she gets what she wants." Fiddler asked, "And you're loyal to your city, Crocus?" Crocus said, "Of course." Fiddler asked, "So you do anything you could to prevent the Empress from conquering it?" Crocus said, "Well, yes, but..." Fiddler turned back to Kalam and said, "Sir?" Kalam looked out over the waves, sighed, then nodded to himself. He faced Crocus. He said, "It's this, lad. Time's come. I'm going after her." What?
Wow. Really casually dropped in there, right?
Crocus's expression was blank, but Fiddler saw Apsalar's eyes widen. Her face lost its color. She sat back suddenly, then half smiled, and Fiddler went cold upon seeing it. Crocus said, "I don't know what you mean. After who? The Empress? How?" Apsalar smiled a smile that had belonged to her once, long ago, when she'd been someone else, and said, "He means that he's going to try and kill her." Crocus stood and almost pitched over the side. He said, "What? You? You and a C6 sapper with a broken fiddle strapped to his back? Do you think we're going to help you in this insane, suicidal..." Apsalar's eyes narrowed on Kalam. She said, I remember. Crocus turned to her and asked, remember what? She said, Kalam. He was Faladin's dagger, and the claw gave him command of a hand. Kalam's a master assassin, Crocus, and Quick Ben, Crocus shouted, is 3,000 leagues away. He's a squad mage, for Hood's sake. That's it. A squalid little squad mage. Fiddler said, not quite. And being so far away doesn't mean a thing, son. Quick Ben's our shaved knuckle in the hole. Crocus asked, You're what in the where? Fiddler said, shaved knuckle, as in the game of knuckles. A good gambler is usually using a shaved knuckle, as in cheating in the cast, if you know what I mean. As for hole, that'd be Quick Ben's Warren, the one that can put him at Kalam's side in the space of a heartbeat, no matter how far away he happens to be. So Crocus, there you have it. Kalam's going to give it a try, but it's going to take some planning, preparation, and that starts here in 7 cities. You want Darujistan free forevermore? Then the Empress Lasine must die. So, a couple of things in this last conversation. Kalam was a master assassin prior to joining the Empire, and he's going after Lasine. What a madman.
Absolutely.
He's just as crazy as Quick Ben.
Possibly crazier.
Yeah.
He's taking a hit. He's taking a contract. Not even a contract. He's just doing it for pride almost. Going after the Empress.
Retribution.
Yeah.
Also, Quick Ben can travel by Warren instantaneously to Kalam's side. And this is impressive given what we've seen of travel by Warren so far. It's faster to travel by Warren, but not instantaneous from what we've seen.
Oh, I know. It's always taken. I mean, they're able to go thousands of miles in hours. The hints at Quick Ben here is, wow, he's really a lot more powerful than we are aware of.
Right. And then on the topic of the distance, they just said it's 3,000 leagues from where they are to Genebacus.
Right.
Because Quick Ben's still on Genebacus right now. It's a long ways away.
Yes, it is. Very impressive.
Crocus slowly sat back down, then asked, but why 7 cities? Isn't the Empress in Quantali? Kalam said, because, lad, 7 cities is about to rise. He then angled the fisher boat into the creek mouth, and the oppressive heat of the land rose around them. Crocus asked, what do you mean? Kalam bared his teeth and said, rebellion. Fiddler swung around and scanned the fetid undergrowth lining the banks. And that, he said to himself, as a chill clutched his stomach, is the part of this plan that I hate the most. Chasing one of Quick Ben's wild ideas with the whole countryside going up in flames. Knowing Quick Ben, I'm sure it's really wild.
And like I said earlier, it's like adrenaline junkies, but at the same time, Ben is really smart.
This has got to be what Quick Ben was thinking about in the epilogue of Gardens of the Moon. Remember, he was saying Whiskey Jack's going to love this idea.
Oh yeah.
This must be what he's talking about.
This is the plan. I got a plan.
The plan.
My plan. That's right.
A minute later, they rounded a bend and the village appeared. It was made of a scattering of wattle and daub huts in a broken half circle facing a line of skiffs pulled onto a sandy beach. Kalam nudged the tiller and the fisher boat drifted toward the strand. The keel scraped bottom and Fiddler clambered over the gunwale, then stepped onto dry land. Moby clung with all fours to the front of his tunic. Fiddler ignored the squawking creature and slowly straightened. As the village's mongrel dogs barked at their arrival, he sighed, well, it's begun. And thus the chapter ends.
Good chapter.
Yeah. Very exciting chapter.
Very exciting chapter.
For standout moments, Fiddler being so tough on land and being absolutely miserable at sea and just salty.
Yeah, I love that. It is really funny to see him. I don't like seeing him miserable because I love Fid so much, but it is funny to see what it brings out in him.
Yeah, it's more just how he's normally pretty good-natured, and he's just like, meh. Like, just so irritable.
Yeah, because he's real sweet. Generally, he's actually, would you call him a sweet-natured individual?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of how I picture him, too.
Like I said before, he's kind of the heart of the series.
I think so.
You get a little bit of that in Gardens of the Moon when he gives a speech to Whiskey Jack.
Yeah.
But as you get more exposure to him, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
The awesome size of the Denrabi Soul Taken was incredible, as well as the method with which it was dispatched.
Yes, I'm knocked over by the size of that thing, but I love that build up when he's talking in their heads, and I'm just like, I'm going to respect you and not eat you. It's like, well, we're warning you off, but okay, if you want a piece, here you go. And he blows it to pieces.
It's reminiscent of that demon that Baruch summoned that was like, I could level this city if I didn't have these chains binding. Then he gets a boot in the back of his neck that is like squealing. You're running
it's
away.
Very much like that. Oh.
Fiddler getting upset at Kalam for getting drunk and spilling the beans on old history to Crocus. Love it.
I love it. I like that we finally get something on Kalam. This is probably the most that is this the most that we get on Kalam, period, on his backstory?
I don't think so.
Because we get a lot of story with Kalam, but I don't recall a lot of backstory.
It's a lot of book to try to remember.
That's true.
I think there is some little tidbits here and there that we get more of.
Yeah,
I think.
I know there is. I know there is.
And then the information that was revealed in what Kalam was telling Crocus, the specifics of it, right? Yeah. That's some pretty important stuff.
Oh, I love that. It's like it is a great what moment. When it's like, we're going to go.
Right. Oh, the revelation that Kalam is going after Lacine.
Yes. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, what? You guys were up to something. I didn't know it was that serious.
Yeah. And then that info about who Kalam was before he joined the Empire, that he was the Faladin's dagger. That title sounds so cool.
It does. So he's a master of a master assassin. I think, I love, and having that told to us or confirmed by Absolar. I guess it's the first time it's actually confirmed in the series, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, we know. I think we know he's. Is it mentioned that he's an assassin? It is mentioned that he's an assassin in Gardens.
It's mentioned that he is an ex-member of the Claw, and they were like, "How did you get out?" I thought nobody could get out.
So that's why I assume he's an assassin, is from that alone. But I think he's more Claw than any Claw's ever been. He's too much of a Claw.
The revelation that Quick Bend has the ability to instantaneously travel at a minimum of 3,000 leagues.
Yeah, that's a big reveal, and that's a big power level too. It's like, wow, Ben is really strong.
Yeah, he is.
And we knew he was pretty tough from what little bit we've seen, but we know he's got the ability to sniff things out like Fid, but more so because he's an actual wizard. I love anything that we learn about Kalam and Quick, and even Fid. Those are some of my favorite humans in the series.
Right. All right. You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
No, just a great first chapter to this amazing book, dude. Great first chapter.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We got Ikarium and Mappo, introduction to them.
Yeah.
And then we learned what divers were. We were introduced to Coltane, Diker, Malik Rel, all these critical characters. And then this awesome scene that we had on the boat between the Denrabi and then they, realizing that they were going after the Empress. I mean, some big stuff going on.
It's a great stage set and real quick. First book, Gardens of the Moon, there's more slow build up, and it's this now that we're familiar with the world. Now we can get into this world, and I love how they do so. I love how Erikson does so.
Right. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Great episode. Thanks, everybody.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.